Well, Ben Taleblu is a senior Iran analyst at the Foundation for Defence and Democracies. He joins us live now from Washington, D.C. Good morning to you, Ben, there in Washington. Explain to us why this attack now?
And good evening to you, Beverly. It's a pleasure to be back. This attack, whether it was carried out by the Islamic State or Arab separatists in Iran's majority Arab province of Khuzestan, the city of Ahvaz, targeted the Revolutionary Guard Corps, but also targeted civilians. This is an act of terrorism. It should be condemned. But it comes at a time in Iran where you have growing popular unrest, and also at a time in the region when the predominantly Sunni Middle East is looking to lash out and check predominantly Shiite Iran.
Of course, Iran is breathing retaliatory fire at the US and other Arab Gulf states. How do you think they are going to practically, though, respond?
Well, this is actually a very important question because over the past few years, Iran's growing missile accuracy is what has permitted it to respond to these types of terrorist attacks. You remember in the summer of 2017, ISIS attacked the capital, Tehran. Iran responded against ISIS positions in Syria with 6 short-range ballistic missiles. This summer, there was a Kurdish insurgency in Iran's west. Iran responded against Iranian Kurds headquartered in Iraq this September by firing 7 short-range ballistic missiles. So it's likely that if Iran identifies that the jurisdiction it can respond in is weak, then it'll fire short-range ballistic missiles again. If not, it might engage in proxy wars or acts of terrorism against the West.
Now, this has been quite an issue in terms of Iran's, I guess, gains and political influences in more recent times. Who would be most likely, do you think? Who has the most to gain from destabilizing Iran at the moment?
Well, if it's in the very, very short term, Iran's revolutionary elite stands to benefit. They can, of course, try to rally the population at a time when the population is exceptionally divided from the regime. There is a chasm between state and a society in Iran today, and it can use it to kind of further its hardline message and its hardline activities abroad. Obviously, in the long term, I think no one benefits from terrorism, but right now I think the regime may look to capitalize on this gross act of violence in a very kind of ruthless and instrumental fashion. The regime is going to continue doing what the regime is known to be best to be doing, which is repression at home and aggression abroad.
Yeah. Not much by way of condemnation, though, from Saudi. What can we read into that?
I mean, Saudi Arabia is locked into a large political, economic, and I would even say sectarian conflict with Iran. It's a cold conflict. It has multiple theaters of competition, whether that's Bahrain, Syria, but the most important one right now is Yemen. I wouldn't read too much into the diplomatic niceties or the condemnation. Obviously, there's no love lost on both sides of the Gulf, but I think the most poignant condemnation came from the U.S., the one that was presented from the podium of the State Department.
Yeah. The US's abandonment of the Iran nuclear deal, of course, is intensifying domestic pressure for Rouhani. Is this a factor as well?
I think this is a factor that's been brewing in Iran basically since the deal went into effect in January 2016. I don't say it's a factor for terrorism, but it's a factor for the growing popular unrest. Rouhani habitually overpromised and then underdelivered. The Iranians negotiated a great deal, a deal that was in their favor, but they misunderstood the way American secondary sanctions and non-nuclear sanctions worked, and of course they assumed that the business community would follow the political community to re-enter Iran. Iranians are upset, but of course they've been upset at this regime for a long time because they've mismanaged the banking sector, financial sector, and the larger macroeconomy.
Ben, always appreciate your analysis. Thank you.
Pleasure to be back. Thank you.